Welcome back to Reddit Drama Unpacked, where every betrayal unfolds like a movie you can't stop watching. Today, we dive into the explosive story of Jack Wilson, the loving husband who thought his wife was attending a simple work conference until a mysterious text shattered his entire reality. What started as an ordinary goodbye kiss turned into a shocking web of lies, hidden getaways, secret affairs, and public humiliation that left an entire town talking. But Jack, he didn't just sit back. He plotted a revenge so cold, so calculated, it turned a personal tragedy into an unforgettable public scandal. Stay tuned. You won't believe how far one husband goes when betrayal crosses the line. Jack Wilson stood in the doorway of their bedroom, his eyes fixed on the delicate scene before him. Megan, his wife of 10 years, was meticulously folding her clothes, gently laying them into the open suitcase. The morning sun bathed her auburn hair in golden hues, highlighting her soft green eyes that once captured his heart with a single glance. Even after a decade of marriage, Jack still marveled at how beautiful she looked. But today, beneath that admiration, something unspoken stirred inside him, a discomfort he couldn't quite name yet. "Are you sure you've got everything you need for the conference?" Jack asked, his voice light, leaning casually against the doorframe. Megan glanced up, offering him a gentle smile. "I think so. 5 days in Chicago. Better safe than sorry." His gaze drifted to the neatly folded lingerie in her suitcase. Delicate lace he recognized immediately. He had gifted it to her for their anniversary just last month. Seeing it stirred warmth in his chest at first, a small gesture that she was bringing a piece of their intimacy along. But as his eyes lingered, that warmth subtly shifted into unease. Why pack something so intimate for a work conference? "Taking the special occasion stuff, I see," Jack commented, trying to keep his tone playful. Megan's cheeks flushed faintly as she tucked the lingerie deeper into the suitcase. "Well, you never know. Fancy dinner or something." He chuckled softly, but couldn't shake the strange sensation clawing at him. Megan had spent extra time on her makeup that morning, longer than usual. Her hair was perfectly styled into soft waves, not the messy bun she often wore when heading to work. She spritzed herself with the expensive perfume he had also given her on their anniversary, jasmine and vanilla, filling the room with familiar sweetness that now felt oddly bittersweet. "You're going all out for this conference," Jack observed, his voice still teasing but his heart tightening ever so slightly. Megan shrugged without meeting his gaze. "Just want to make a good impression." As she zipped up her suitcase, Jack tried to dismiss the unease building inside him. This was Megan, his best friend, the woman who stood by him through everything, his partner in life. He refused to give weight to the quiet voice whispering doubt into his ear. "All set?" he asked with a smile. She nodded, wheeling her suitcase to the door. "I'll call you every night, I promise." She leaned in and kissed him, soft, lingering, her fingers trailing along his jawline. For a moment, Jack melted into her touch. "I'll miss you," she whispered. "I'll miss you too," he replied, forcing cheer into his voice. "Don't forget my souvenir." Megan laughed lightly, her musical voice echoing in the hallway. "Of course, love you." "Love you too," Jack answered, watching from the window as Megan loaded her luggage into the car and drove away, waving as she disappeared around the corner. The house instantly felt heavier, quieter. Jack sighed and wandered into the kitchen to brew his coffee before grading the stack of physics exams waiting for him. But as soon as he sat down, his phone buzzed. Expecting Megan's text to confirm her arrival at the airport, Jack picked it up. The message staring back at him was not from Megan. It wasn't even from a saved contact. The message simply read, "Your wife isn't who you think she is. Check the guest list for the Palmer Hotel." Jack froze. His throat tightened. The message felt like ice down his spine. He stared at it for a long time, rereading the cryptic words. His first instinct was to delete it, obviously some sick prank or spam, but the longer he sat there, the more that tiny seed of doubt grew roots inside his mind. "No," he muttered aloud, as though speaking would banish the thought. Megan wouldn't. But the unease refused to fade. Against his better judgment, Jack opened his laptop. Just to check, just to silence the doubts. Within minutes, he found himself on the Palmer Hotel's conference listing. Carefully, he filled out the form. Conference name, Chicago Educators Summit attendee, Megan Wilson. He clicked Submit. The result flashed back immediately. No attendees found matching your search. Jack's stomach twisted painfully. Maybe he typed it wrong. He checked the spelling and tried again. Same result. His hands trembled slightly as panic bubbled beneath the surface. A cold sweat broke across his neck. His mind raced through the past few weeks. The late nights grading, the sudden new wardrobe, the secrecy with her phone. No, this was insane. But he couldn't stop. Jack grabbed Megan's calendar on their shared app. There it was. Chicago Educators Summit, blocked off for the week. But directly beneath it, partially hidden, was another event. A&M Special Project. His breath caught. A&M. In that instant, something clicked. Adam Reeves, the new PE teacher, the one Megan had been collaborating with recently. Late nights together at the school. The Fitness and Art Integration Project. The Special Project. Jack's hands curled into fists as an ominous realization settled heavily upon him. Jack sat motionless on the floor of Megan's home office, his mind whirling in a storm of disbelief and pain. The small folded note trembled in his hand, Adam's unmistakable handwriting taunting him like a cruel ghost. Can't wait for our special getaway. You're my muse, my passion. 10 years. 10 years of marriage, of shared dreams, of struggles, of sacrifices, and she had thrown it all away for this, for some cheap affair with the new PE teacher. Jack's breath came in ragged gasps. His chest ached as though something had physically shattered inside him. The betrayal wasn't just about sex, it was about the destruction of trust. The foundation they had built their entire life upon had crumbled in a single moment. How long had this been going on? Was it just recent? Or had there been other men before Adam? Jack didn't know anymore. He wasn't sure he even wanted to know. After what felt like hours of sitting in stunned silence, the initial tidal wave of grief began to subside, replaced by something colder, sharper. He needed to know the full truth, not some partial confession, not Megan's rehearsed lies or deflections. The truth. He wiped his face with the back of his hand and forced himself up. His legs felt weak beneath him, but the resolve building inside gave him strength. His mind sharpened into focus like never before. This wasn't going to be some screaming match of accusations. Jack Wilson was a man of science, of evidence, of proof. And if Megan was going to betray him, then she and Adam would both face the consequences. He grabbed his phone almost automatically and without hesitation scrolled through his contacts. His thumb hovered briefly over one name before pressing it. Sarah Chin. The phone rang twice before she answered. "Jack, everything okay?" Sarah's warm, familiar voice carried a hint of concern. Jack opened his mouth, but for a moment, nothing came out. Then his voice cracked. "Sarah, I need you." That was all it took. "I'm on my way," she said firmly. 10 minutes. Sarah Chin was not just a former student of Jack's. She had become much more than that. In the years after high school, Sarah went on to study criminal justice, eventually working as a private investigator. She possessed a sharp, analytical mind, and more importantly, she was fiercely loyal to Jack. She'd always looked up to him, not just as a teacher, but as a mentor and friend. True to her word, Sarah arrived swiftly, letting herself in with the spare key Jack had given her years ago for emergencies. She found him at the dining room table, surrounded by scattered evidence. Megan's secret calendar entry still pulled up on his phone, the folded note resting beside it. Sarah surveyed the scene quickly, piecing it all together without needing a single word. She sat across from Jack, reached across the table and squeezed his trembling hand. "Tell me everything." Jack did, his voice hollow, breaking at times, but determined. He laid out every strange detail, every shift in Megan's behavior, the conference that didn't exist, the message from the unknown sender, the folded note, Adam's involvement, all of it. Sarah listened intently, her brow furrowed deeply as the puzzle came together in her mind. When he finally finished, she leaned back in her chair and took a long breath. "Jack, I need to be honest with you," she said softly. "I've suspected something for a while." Jack's eyes widened. "What? Why didn't you say anything?" "I wasn't sure," Sarah admitted. "I saw Megan and Adam together a few weeks ago in town. It looked intimate, but I told myself maybe I was overreacting. I didn't want to plant a seed of doubt in your marriage if it was nothing. But now I know I should have trusted my gut." Jack rubbed his temples, the ache growing behind his eyes. "So it's really happening. It's not just my imagination." "No, Jack, I'm afraid it's real," Sarah said gently. Jack closed his eyes briefly, as though trying to find steady ground beneath his feet. When he opened them again, there was no more uncertainty, only grim resolve. "What do we do?" he asked. Sarah didn't hesitate. "We gather evidence. If we're going to confront them, we do it properly. You deserve proof they can't worm their way out of." She pulled out her tablet, her fingers moving swiftly as she accessed her private investigator tools. "I can ping Megan's phone location right now, assuming she didn't disable tracking." Jack swallowed hard, his stomach twisting. The idea of tracking his wife felt invasive, but hadn't she already violated every boundary? "Do it," he said quietly. Within seconds, the tracking signal appeared on the screen. A blinking blue dot marked Megan's precise location. Jack's heart sank. She wasn't in Chicago. She wasn't even near the conference. Instead, she was at Oceanana Resort, a luxury beachfront hotel 3 hours away, a place Jack had once dreamed of taking her for a romantic getaway, but never could afford. And Adam? He was there too. Jack recognized the booking under Adam's name, tied to the same suite Megan was registered to. Every piece of the puzzle clicked into place. There was no more room for doubt. Jack sat back, his face pale, but his voice steady. "All right, we go there." Sarah blinked. "Tonight?" "Yes." "Jack, are you sure? Do you want to cool down first? Think this through?" "No." His tone was like steel. "They think they're safe right now, comfortable. They need to feel that comfort ripped out from underneath them." Sarah nodded solemnly. "All right then, but you're not going alone." "I wasn't planning to," Jack replied, his voice cold but controlled. "In fact, I'm going to need your help for something bigger." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "Bigger?" Jack leaned forward, his eyes narrowed with calculated focus. "I want everyone to know. I want the truth to be impossible to hide." The late afternoon sun painted the Oceanana Resort in golden hues as Jack and Sarah pulled into the circular driveway. From the outside, the place looked like paradise. White marble columns, rows of palm trees swaying gently, bellhops in pristine uniforms opening doors for smiling couples. Under any other circumstances, Jack might have found the place charming. But today it was simply the crime scene. He glanced at Sarah, who was already slipping into her role with flawless ease. She laughed, flirted with the young concierge, as if they were just another couple escaping for a romantic weekend. Jack did his best to match her energy, wrapping his arm casually around her waist and smiling through the storm boiling inside him. "Mr. and Mrs. Chin," the concierge greeted with a bright smile. "Welcome to Oceanana. Room 712 is ready for you. Enjoy your stay." "Thank you so much," Sarah replied sweetly, taking the keycards. As the elevator doors closed behind them, Jack's mask of cheerfulness dropped. His jaw tightened, his knuckles whitening as he clenched his fists. "They're here, Sarah," he whispered. "They're laughing in that room right now." "I know," Sarah said calmly, "and they have no idea what's about to happen." When the elevator reached the 7th floor, they stepped into the plush hallway. The silence was heavy, almost ceremonial. Jack's heartbeat thundered in his ears. They passed several doors, and then Jack's eyes zeroed in on room 714. Megan and Adam were behind that door. As if on cue, muffled voices drifted through the door, voices Jack knew far too well. "Oh, Adam," Megan's voice purred, breathy with desire. "Tonight is going to be unforgettable." Jack's stomach twisted as Adam replied with a low chuckle, "I hope you brought that little red number I like." "I always aim to please," Megan giggled. Jack's body stiffened with rage, but Sarah gripped his arm firmly. "Not yet," she whispered. "Stick to the plan." Inside their own room, Sarah immediately began setting up her equipment. She positioned a small hidden camera across from 714's door and activated the audio recorder. "This will give us a solid record of everything from here on," she said, eyes sharp and focused. Jack nodded grimly, pacing like a caged lion. "We're not just exposing them for us," he muttered. "I want the entire school board to see this if needed." "They will," Sarah assured him, "but first we need to confront them." Jack suddenly stopped pacing and faced Sarah. "Before we go in, I want to live stream it." Sarah's eyes widened slightly. "You sure?" "Yes, they've been hiding behind closed doors for months. It's time their lies saw the light of day." Sarah hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Okay, I'll sync your phone to the school's private staff group account. The moment you go live, it'll stream directly there." As Sarah finished the setup, Jack sat down for a brief moment, breathing deeply to calm himself. His hands still trembled, but inside him burned a growing sense of power. He was done being the victim. Finally, he stood and strode to the hallway. Sarah followed, phone in hand, recording discreetly. Jack took a steadying breath and knocked firmly on the door to room 714. For a few tense seconds, there was only silence. Then hurried footsteps approached. The door cracked open. Megan stood there in a silk robe, her hair tousled, cheeks flushed. Her eyes widened in horror the moment she saw Jack. "Jack!" she gasped, voice filled with panic. What are you doing here?" Jack offered her a cold smile. "Surprise, darling. I figured I'd join you at your little conference." Behind Megan, Adam appeared, half-dressed and visibly panicked. "Jack, listen, this—" Jack cut him off sharply. "Save it, both of you. I already know everything." Megan's voice quivered as tears welled up. "Jack, please don't do this here." "Here? You mean in the hotel where you've been screwing your coworker behind my back?" Jack's voice rose, sharp like a blade. From nearby rooms, doors started cracking open as curious guests peeked into the hallway, sensing the unfolding drama. Sarah whispered from behind Jack, "We're live." The live stream had begun. Hundreds and maybe thousands of viewers were now witnessing Megan and Adam assess disgrace in real time. Jack didn't miss a beat. "Tell them, Megan," he said loudly. "Tell everyone how long this has been going on." Megan looked cornered, trembling as her face turned pale. "Please, Jack, not like this." "No, exactly like this." Jack's voice was unwavering. "For months you've lied to me, humiliated me, betrayed our marriage vows. You mocked me behind my back. Now you answer for it." Adam stepped forward, raising his voice. "This is harassment, Wilson. You can't just show up like this." Jack laughed bitterly. "Harassment? After what you've done? You must have a rich sense of irony, Adam." Sarah's phone buzzed as the live stream viewership skyrocketed, comments pouring in from shocked parents, students, and staff members. The whole town was tuning in. Megan broke down sobbing, her legs weakening as she clutched the doorframe. "Jack, please, can't we talk in private, please?" "We're long past privacy, Megan," Jack replied coldly. "You lost that privilege when you chose him." The scene had spiraled beyond anything Jack could have imagined. The live stream continued to climb in viewership. Hundreds of parents, students, faculty, and even members of the town council were now watching this betrayal unfold in real time. Adam was sweating profusely now, his half-naked frame growing paler by the second. Megan's tears streamed freely down her flushed cheeks. The perfect facade of their secret romance had shattered completely, exposed to the entire community they foolishly thought they could deceive. "Jack, please," Megan whimpered, her voice cracking under the weight of her shame. "You don't have to do this. We can still—" Jack cut her off with an icy glare, his voice like steel. "No, you've had months to make different choices, but instead you doubled down on your lies, and now you'll own every single one of them." From the corners of the hallway, curious hotel guests had gathered, whispering among themselves. Some had already pulled out their own phones to record what was happening, yet another layer of public humiliation that neither Megan nor Adam could escape. Suddenly Adam snapped, his temper boiling over. "You think this makes you a man, Wilson? Humiliating your wife in public? You're pathetic." Jack's expression remained unshaken as he stepped closer to Adam, his voice a cold whisper only a few inches from the man's face. "No, Adam. What makes me a man is not stooping to your level. You betrayed your wife. You destroyed your family. You mocked me for months, and yet here I stand, calm, composed, and still with my dignity intact." The power shift in the room was palpable. Adam's bravado deflated as quickly as it had flared. He had nothing left to say, and every witness in that hallway knew it. Sarah, steady as always, subtly zoomed in her phone camera to capture Adam's defeated expression and Megan's crumpled sobs. The live stream chat had exploded. "OMG, this is insane. Jack is a hero for handling this with class. Those two deserve everything they're getting." Then Jack delivered the final blow. "I want you both to listen very carefully," Jack said, raising his voice for everyone, both in the hallway and behind their screens, to hear. "You didn't just betray your spouses. You betrayed an entire community. You lied to your students. You corrupted the very institution that trusted you to lead young minds." Megan's sobs intensified, and Adam's face turned a dangerous shade of red. "And now," Jack continued, "your lies are being seen by everyone you were trying to fool, parents, students, administrators. I don't have to expose you. You've done that all on your own." With a simple flick of his hand, Jack stopped the live stream. The damage, however, was already irreversible. Megan collapsed to her knees, burying her face in her hands. Adam stood frozen, his breathing ragged, completely humiliated. Jack turned and looked directly into Sarah's camera one last time before shutting it off. His words were calm, but cutting. "Let this be a lesson to anyone watching. Integrity matters. Choices have consequences." The phone screen went black, but the explosion it triggered would continue rippling through the community for days, even weeks. The following morning, Millbrook woke up to a scandal that would be remembered for generations. News spread like wildfire across social media, local news outlets, and even regional newspapers. The headlines screamed across screens, "Teacher Scandal Erupts Live. Infidelity Exposed in Viral Stream." Parents texted each other frantically. Students whispered in the hallways. The school board's phone lines were jammed. Jack's name was on everyone's lips, but for once, not as a victim of betrayal, but as the man who stood up for himself with unparalleled dignity. At the local diner, elderly folks who had once taught Jack as a boy now shook their heads in disbelief. "Never thought Megan had it in her," one of them muttered. "And that Adam fella, what a disgrace," another chimed in. Megan and Adam, on the other hand, found themselves isolated and vilified. The honeymoon suite at the Oceana Resort had turned into a suffocating prison. Neither dared to check their phones anymore. Each buzz brought fresh waves of shame, fury, and imploding reputations. Megan sobbed for hours, scrolling through hateful comments, parents condemning her and students she had once inspired, now expressing heartbreak and disgust. Adam, ever the narcissist, raged and punched the wall. "They'll get over it," he sneered. "We'll survive this." "No, Adam," Megan whispered through tears, her voice hollow. "We won't. We're finished." At Millbrook High, the tension was suffocating. The school board called for an emergency meeting that very afternoon. Jack arrived wearing a simple suit, flanked by Sarah, who had become his unwavering rock. The boardroom was packed. Parents, students, teachers, even reporters squeezed into the tight space. Eleanor Simmons, the school board president, called the meeting to order. Her face was grim, but her voice was steady. "We are here to discuss the events that have recently brought national attention to Millbrook High." Jack stood when called to speak. The room grew silent. "I never wanted this to become a spectacle," Jack began, his voice calm but resonant. "I only sought the truth. I only wanted honesty, something I was denied." He paused, glancing around the room, locking eyes with his students, many of whom nodded supportively. "I didn't betray our school. I didn't betray my marriage, but I refuse to be silent while others mock integrity." The crowd broke into light applause before being quickly hushed by Simmons. Then Megan was called. Her voice trembled as she addressed the board. "I made terrible choices," she whispered. "I betrayed my marriage, my students, and this school. I can't take it back, but I ask for your mercy." Adam, defiant as always, stepped forward and sneered into the microphone. "This is a personal matter that was turned into a public circus. My professional qualifications remain unchanged. I demand to keep my job." The arrogance in his voice was like gasoline on an open flame. Eleanor Simmons spoke after brief deliberation. "Mr. Wilson, your professionalism and the grace with which you handled this have been commendable. You will remain at Millbrook High." A wave of relief washed through the room. Jack exhaled. Sarah squeezed his hand gently. "As for Mrs. Wilson and Mr. Reeves," Eleanor continued, her tone icy, "you are both suspended indefinitely pending termination hearings." Megan burst into tears again. Adam slammed his hand on the podium but had no further defense. As Jack walked out of the meeting, dozens of students, parents, and teachers gathered around him offering praise, comfort, and gratitude. "You're a role model, Mr. Wilson," one student whispered. That evening, the local PTA organized a community rally in Jack's honor. Hundreds showed up, many with signs reading, "Integrity Matters" and "We Stand with Jack." Sarah stood by his side, whispering, "You didn't just expose a scandal, Jack, you inspired a town." Jack smiled faintly, though the weight of the past days still hung heavy. "Maybe, Sarah, but tonight is the first time in months where I finally feel free." The weeks following the school board's decision saw the once pristine image of Megan and Adam shattered into unrecognizable fragments. Millbrook, once a sleepy town, now buzzed with the continuing fallout from the scandal. Megan could barely walk through a grocery store without feeling the weight of stares. The murmurs just out of earshot, but sharp as knives. Her phone had become a device of torture. Every message, every missed call, a painful reminder of the friends she had lost, the bridges burned, the career slipping through her fingers. Some parents whose children had once adored her now openly demanded her removal from the school district entirely. Even her closest allies had abandoned her. "Can you understand, Megan? It's just too toxic now," one former friend said during a call that ended in abrupt silence. Adam fared no better. His usual swagger had turned into defensive sneers whenever he dared step into public. His arrogance, once a shield, now exposed him as Millbrook's most despised figure. Parents had started filing formal complaints about his conduct long before the scandal, but now they found the courage to speak with full force. A few of his former students even gave statements about his questionable behavior and interactions during after-school activities, which now came under fresh scrutiny. At home, the two conspirators found their relationship strained and souring under the weight of their shared disgrace. What once had been fueled by stolen excitement was now hollow and bitter. Arguments became daily rituals, and their once secret rendezvous had mutated into a grim cohabitation of mutual blame. "You said we'd survive this," Megan hissed at Adam one evening, her voice cracked from exhaustion. "You were supposed to keep this under control." "Don't blame me," Adam snapped back. "You're the one who left a trail of text messages and hotel receipts." They both knew the truth. They had built their house of sin on sand, and the tide was washing it away. Meanwhile, Jack thrived. His science team's success at the national championship drew praise from across the state. He was invited to conferences, recognized for not only his professional accomplishments, but also for his moral courage. Reporters reached out to profile him as the man who stood tall against betrayal, a portrait of resilience in a time of crisis. The final blow to Megan and Adam came swiftly. The school board, after thorough internal investigations, terminated both of their contracts, citing gross misconduct, moral violations, and reputational damage to the institution. Their teaching licenses were suspended, pending permanent revocation. The State Board of Education had begun the formal process to blacklist them from ever working in public education again. Megan sat across from her attorney in stunned silence when the final decision came. "There's no appeal," she whispered. The lawyer shook his head solemnly. Given the overwhelming evidence, any attempt would be futile. The silence in the room was suffocating. The walls seemed to close in, suffocating any remnants of her former life. Adam, on the other hand, handled his termination with explosive rage. He stormed into the district office demanding reconsideration, only to be escorted out by security after a heated scene. Local media caught wind of his outburst, further humiliating him publicly. As their professional lives collapsed, their financial troubles escalated. Legal fees piled up. The resort expenses, which they had naively charged to credit cards, now ballooned into unpayable debt. Their names became toxic in every employment circle. Even private schools, art centers, and recreational facilities refused to consider them. The ultimate humiliation came when the bank initiated foreclosure proceedings on Megan's house. With no steady income and drowning in legal debts, she faced the possibility of homelessness. It was in these final moments of collapse that Megan fully grasped the extent of her fall. One night, sitting alone on the bare floor of her rapidly emptying house, she clutched Jack's letter, the one he had left her after the divorce was finalized. She read his words again, her tears staining the paper. Trust is the cornerstone of love. Once broken, it's nearly impossible to rebuild. You chose Adam. You made your decision. I wish you peace and redemption, but without me. The words cut her anew every time. Across town, Jack was packing for his move to the new state. Offers had poured in from elite science academies, and after much reflection he had accepted a position at one of the country's most prestigious STEM high schools. It was everything he dreamed of. A chance to start fresh, to leave the ghosts of betrayal behind and to finally build something free of shadows. Sarah helped him load the final boxes into the car. She had become more than a friend, his quiet confidant, his moral anchor during the storm. "You ready?" she asked gently. Jack nodded, looking back at the house one last time. For the first time in a long while, yes. As they pulled out of Millbrook, Jack didn't glance back. Behind him, Megan stood at her window, watching his car disappear down the road. A single whispered word escaped her lips. Goodbye. But Jack never heard it. And even if he did, it wouldn't have changed a thing. Months passed, and Millbrook slowly returned to its quiet rhythm, though scars from the scandal still lingered like the faint echo of a thunderstorm that had long since rolled away. Megan's apartment grew emptier with every passing week, as one by one, debts consumed her belongings. The once vibrant art teacher was now a shell, jobless, abandoned by former friends, and ignored by the very community that once adored her. Adam had left town entirely after his final public outburst. Rumors swirled that he was working odd jobs in another state, his name synonymous with disgrace. He had become the cautionary tale whispered to new hires in distant schools. Don T become an Adam Reeves. But for Jack, life was moving forward. Not perfectly, but with promise. The move to the new state marked more than just a career change. It was a symbolic rebirth. The STEM magnet school welcomed him like a long-lost champion. Students hung on his every word. His innovative teaching methods and passion for science turned the school S program into one of the best in the country within months. National science journals began to publish his work. Jack Wilson, once the betrayed husband, was now being recognized as one of the nation's leading science educators. And through it all, Sarah remained by his side. Their friendship deepened into something far richer, built not on romantic impulse but on trust, that rarest and most precious of human currencies. They spent weekends exploring their new city, evenings laughing over dinner, and countless quiet moments where simply being together was enough. There were no lies between them, no betrayals hidden beneath fake smiles. What started as friendship had evolved into an unspoken bond, one neither of them felt the need to label or rush. One spring evening, as cherry blossoms fluttered in the gentle breeze, Sarah and Jack sat on a park bench watching the sunset. Sarah leaned against him, her voice soft but sure. "You've built something incredible here, Jack. Not just this job, your whole life." Jack smiled, gazing at the horizon where the setting sun painted the sky in fiery golds and pinks. "It's not just me. You've been my anchor, Sarah." She chuckled. "Maybe. But you're the one who made the choice to survive." Jack grew quiet for a moment, then spoke with a calm resolve. "I'm not angry anymore, not at Megan, not even at Adam. They've already paid a price I wouldn't wish on anyone." Sarah looked up at him, studying his face as if seeing it anew. "You've forgiven them?" Jack shook his head gently. "Forgiveness? No. But I've let go. There's a difference." In that moment, he finally released the last weight that had clung to his soul, since that hotel confrontation. Across the country, Megan's downward spiral reached its rock bottom. The foreclosure of her apartment was followed by a move into a rundown shared flat outside the city. She now worked part-time in a craft store, barely scraping together enough to cover rent. The vibrant colors she once infused into her students' lives were gone, replaced by muted grays of regret. She received the occasional message from distant friends attempting awkward words of encouragement, but they rang hollow. Megan knew she had become a cautionary tale herself. Late at night, when the world quieted, she sometimes reread Jack's letter. She never responded. What was there left to say? The man she had once betrayed had risen to heights she could barely imagine, while she lived among the ruins of her choices. And then came the final twist of fate. One afternoon, while stocking shelves at the craft store, Megan glanced at the TV mounted in the corner. A local news segment was playing. Tonight we highlight one of the nation's rising stars in education. Jack Wilson, lead science educator at Jefferson Magnet Academy, has been awarded the National Science Teacher of the Year award for his groundbreaking curriculum in applied physics. Megan froze. There he was, smiling, confident, alive. Jack's face filled the screen as he gave an interview from his school's new state-of-the-art laboratory, standing beside students who eagerly showcased their projects. His voice carried the same passion that once captivated her years ago, but now it belonged to the world, not to her. Tears welled in her eyes, not from jealousy, she was long past that, but from a deep hollow ache. This was what he was always meant to be. She had almost destroyed it, and somehow he had risen stronger than ever. As she stood frozen in the store aisle, a customer tapped her shoulder. "Miss, could you help me with this?" Megan wiped her eyes quickly, forcing a hollow smile. "Of course. How can I help?" Back in his new home, Jack arrived that evening to find Sarah waiting for him, holding a bottle of champagne. "What's the occasion?" Jack asked, amused. Sarah beamed. "The national award, obviously. You're officially famous now." Jack laughed softly, the weight of years fully lifted at last. "You know, I wouldn't be standing here without you." She stepped closer, her voice barely a whisper. "You would have, but I'm glad you didn't have to." For the first time, Jack allowed himself to embrace what had been quietly growing between them all along. They stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, not to fill an emptiness, but to celebrate a new fullness. As they toasted that night under a sky full of stars, Jack whispered softly, "To new beginnings." Sarah raised her glass. "To love that's earned." In Millbrook, Megan sat alone with nothing but the distant echoes of what might have been. Jack, meanwhile, stood firmly in a life built not from revenge, but from resilience. His story, their story, was no longer about betrayal. It was about triumph, and that finally was his greatest revenge of all.